just have Kathy do our fire negotiation.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty.
and justice for all.
So we're going to ask Chaplain Dean to lead us in invocation.
Our Father, please be with all of us today and in all of our days. We appreciate you and your help and all the people who care about Kansas City. Please be with those who are away, alone, and afraid. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Thank you. We have somebody, Councilwoman Shields, I believe, on the line.
Mr. Chairman, Councilwoman Shields advises me, because she's also out of power, she will not be calling in this morning.
Okay, how about Councilwoman Heather Hall?
And I believe that's the same situation there.
Okay, how about Reverend Edwards?
Good morning, Commissioner. I believe he was, oh, there he is. Okay. He's in his car. I knew he was busy this morning.
Good morning, Reverend Edwards.
Good morning, and hope you guys are staying warm and staying safe. Thank you for allowing me to share in your meeting about getting to the heart of the matter and where we're headed. We're excited to be headed to begin next month hosting divisional meetings across all 6 police divisions. Excited now that we have a structured agenda whereby each CIO meeting will be addressing similar issues, but at the same time addressing unique challenges within their police divisions. We're going to be inviting the faith community leaders as well as neighborhood leaders to be a part of these meetings virtually because of the coronavirus. We're going to start out all the meetings virtually until further notice. Been working very closely with Officer Cooley and Chief Smith in these initiatives, as well as we're working strategically right now in East Patrol Division to start what's called a conversation called Diversity While Wearing Blue. We look like you, or we are like you, but we just wear blue. And just talk about the different diversity that blue has, from uh, race to gender to sexual orientation, and really have a conversation. And that stems from many of the vitriolic remarks that were shared or said to our men and women in blue who stood during the protest on the plaza, knowing that we are facing in a couple of weeks the beginning of the trial of George Floyd, and perhaps similar outcomes from that trial. So we want to begin to have conversation, put some things in place so that we are well informed, as well as begin to implement the right things so that we can have calm and peace in our city. Now, to that point, getting to the heart of the matter has almost existed a year, self-funded, doing this thing. We've been change agents over the past year, as well as, to some regards, a brand ambassador to KCPD. And we're at the point now where we are soliciting, looking for funding to continue what we're trying to do with our neighborhood initiatives across all 6 police divisions. We're trying to get a professional developed website because we know people will want to engage with us virtually. Many people right now reach out to me through my personal email. And a lot of those things that I can't answer personally, I forward those to Chief Smith or Officer Cooley, and they quickly respond to those inquisitions that we receive. And so we're looking at funding for that, and also youth development. We're also, while we're working with adults and seeking to get to the heart of the matter with them, we're also looking at how can we really reach the systemic challenges that affect our youth And we really think we have a good person that we could bring aboard to help us facilitate that conversation. But again, it's going to take funding. And so I wanted to give that brief report, but also wanted to offer that kind of reach out and challenge that we're at the point now to really broaden the scope and get to the heart of the matter. We're going to be looking for funding to continue the initiative. And these are conversations that I've had with Chief Smith, and he's well aware of these conversations. And so we both agreed that I need to share these publicly with the Board of Police Commissioners. Somebody may have contact or know how that we can get that process facilitated. And for my faith traditions, unless you cast it out there, it never comes back. So I'm casting it out there to see what comes back. So thank you, Chief Smith, for allowing me to share yet again these positive initiatives and programs that we have coming up and how we can continue to make Kansas City a safe city in every zip code. Thank you.
Reverend Edwards, we want to thank you very much for your leadership in this initiative and all the good work that you're doing for this city. This is, I think, pretty spectacular, and we certainly do appreciate your efforts in this regard. Thank you very much. Okay, anything else? Thank you. We have the Lockton companies here to present insurance renewal.
Good morning. My name is Matt Tritz. I'm a vice president at Lockton Companies in our employee benefit consulting practice. So thank you for inviting me today to present this information.
I can't hear you.
Just closer to the microphone a little bit.
Just speak up a bit for us as you present.
Good morning. Is that better?
Yes, sir.
Sorry about that. My name is Matt Tritz. I'm a vice president at Lockton Companies, representing our employee benefit consulting practice. Thank you for the invitation this morning. This morning, we've got about 10 slides, so it's not too long. We plan to cover, there we go. Blue Cross Blue Shield medical renewal, Blue Cross Blue Shield dental renewal, and life and disability coverage with the standard insurance. So that's what's on the agenda today, just about 10 slides. I'll kind of summarize these bullet points here. Really, this is just the starting point where we started the negotiation with Blue Cross and Blue Shield. As insurance companies do, they started asking for a higher renewal than we settled on. Through negotiation, we were, I guess the starting renewal there in the fourth bullet was about an 8.6% increase. We did negotiate with Blue Cross Blue Shield and ended up with, in blue letters, the recommendation by the benefit committee with these changes. We're going to modify the type of contract. You're on a maximum refund contract. We're going to change that to a fully insured contract, which that resulted in a savings by itself of about $750,000. A minor change to prescription drug coverage, which is going to result in about a $450,000 savings. Some slight plan design changes on your PPO and HMO plans, removal of a wellness fund, which results in an increase of just a little bit over 4% to the current premium looking into next year. Sorry. On the bottom of this page is just a quick summary of the prescription drug changes. As you can see, 96% of the prescription, of those taking prescriptions will not be impacted. Only a small number of folks will be impacted, but no one will be without coverage for prescription drugs. This slide illustrates in red the changes that are approved for we're proposing for recommendation To the plan design, you can see on the left-hand side is the current plan design. On the right-hand side is the proposed renewal plan design. Slight increase to deductibles and out-of-pocket maximums, and slight copay increases. This slide is a financial summary that breaks out your actives and retirees. And just shows the annual premium kind of broken out by segment. $34.4 million in premium for your actives. Pre-65 retirees, about $2.8 million in premium. And 65 and over retirees, about $1.8 million in premium. For a total of $39 million, and you can see the actual total cost is $28.8 million, the net after you factor in the contributions from the members of the plan, about $10.2 million. A lot of numbers on this slide. I'll just draw your attention to the bottom. The 2021 renewal, this is for actives only, and the intent is just to show and demonstrate how we're sharing in the cost of the coverage. $34.4 million there is the renewal total premium, which is the 4.06% increase that we mentioned at the beginning. It's about $1.3 million in premium increase. And then just moving over to the right on the bottom, we're splitting or sharing that cost evenly. Members of the plan are going to pick up 4% or have a 4% increase. And then the net itself, $1.1 million for the Board of Police Commissioner plan. This is a summary of the retiree premium on the top, pre-65 retirees, and on the bottom, post-65 retirees. Retirees pay the full cost of this premium today. And in the presentation, you can see the actual increases that will go into effect at renewal. I went through that pretty fast on the medical. I'd like to transition to the dental. Again, this slide demonstrates the starting point. You had the same type of contract on your dental, a maximum refund contract. Blue Cross initially released a renewal with no increase. We did bid this dental program, and it resulted in some savings. So if we go to this slide, our 2021 recommendation by the Benefit Committee is to renew with Blue Cross Blue Shield, changing the contract from a maximum refund to a fully insured contract. And we've made some plan design, actually some enhancements here. This results in a decrease to current premiums. The decrease is 7.7%, $128,000. And these savings will be realized by the members of the plan. They pay 100% of this plan. Quick summary on the bottom, just like the medical, the current plan is on the left side. The renewal plan is on the right side. The green benefit are improvements to the plan. So we reduced copays, reduced deductibles for type 2 and type 3 services. And then we've made a modification to make it a little bit more affordable, removed orthodontia benefit on the base plan, and we still have an orthodontia option for those that want that coverage on the buy-up plan. This is a financial summary of the rates, and you can see the associated decrease by enrollment tier, and there's that minus 7.7% on the rates. Moving into life and disability. Life and disability is provided by the Standard Insurance Company. I've been a long-term partner with this plan. This also was put out to bid, which, if I'll just go to the blue, really resulted in a favorable result. The recommendation of the benefit committee is to renew with the standard 5% decrease to the rates, which results in a $46,000 decrease. And there are some benefit enhancements that go along with this decrease. I guess I should add too that we've extended this and have a rate guarantee through May 1 of 2023. Here is a quick summary of the benefit enhancements. These are provisions of your contract that were not included before that are included. A line of duty benefit that would pay a benefit in the event of on-the-job loss under the AD&D benefit of $50,000, resulting in a line of duty accident. We've increased the child age for life insurance. It's a little easier to understand now. We can add a child onto the plan all the way up to age 25 versus currently it's age 19 and 24 if a full-time student. So we've just removed those and made it available all the way to age 25 for dependents. Enhance the portability, and this is the ability to take this coverage with you should you leave employment here, which this is a nice benefit, increase the age limit and the amounts that you could port. And also added in an assistant living benefit as part of your long-term disability coverage. In essence, this would pay up to a maximum of $5,000 benefit if a member of the plan were to be disabled and, according to the specifically, unable to perform a couple of activities of daily living. So we viewed these as positive improvements to the plan at a cost savings. That was about 10 slides. That's all the information we have for today.
So are you seeing across the board these types of increases in health coverage? With is this common? This was 4% plus you reduced the benefits a little bit. So what are you seeing overall for health insurance?
I'll answer that in terms of medical and prescription drug trend increases. You know, here in Kansas City and across the country, actually, we're seeing a combined medical and prescription drug trend of 7 to 8%. So a 4% increase, I would say, is favorable compared to trend here locally and across the country. And it is common, you noticed or asked about the plan design changes, very common for plans to make minor changes such as those that we went through here in order to create some efficiency and cost savings.
Just,
Lucas.
thank you, sir. One quick question relates to deductibles on healthcare visits. I know it's something that we've explored in different city contracts. In Lockton's discussions with Blue Cross Blue Shield, were there assessments as to whether a marginally or a kind of immaterially increased deductible might give us cost savings given the high number of employees that we have?
Sure. So I'm just going to put this back on I think this is the slide you're asking about. So make sure I understand, we changed, proposing to change the deductible from $300 to $400 for an individual, $600 to $800 for the family. Your question is, what's the savings that produces? Yes. Sure. Those savings for those deductible changes, slight plan design changes, were about $500,000 off of your premiums to make those changes.
Thank you.
Big number. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Chief Smith?
Commissioner, I think on the locked-in proposal, it's a contract, so I think we have to have a motion by the board and accept it to move to engage in the contract.
I move approval.
Second, Lucas.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Dean, second by Mayor Lucas. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Good morning. Warm morning, I'd like to say, maybe next meeting. So we have a couple things I wanted to discuss. Commissioner Wagner asked that I look into the homicide trends for what we've seen basically the last 4 months of last year and what we have so far this year. Deputy Chief Francisco will be presenting on that. He has some slides on that, which are actually some good news. Deputy Chief Karen True is going to be talking about the 911 update, and out of our audit was one of the morale issues that was frequently discussed was the hours of assignment and the staffing of those hours and the overtime and related issues that creates for people while they're at work. So Karen's Deputy Chief True will have an update on that. I had one of our chaplains lined up for the big discussion today to talk about that. Due to the weather and circumstances, I asked him to postpone till next month. It was just, he's using a cane right now. I thought it'd be hard for him to get around down here. Just a tough day. So he will be here next month to make that presentation. In your book, you're going to find 2 policies, which is our internally recorded digital media records and our First Amendment. I asked staff to make sure that these were, excuse me, in the book this month so we could talk about where we're going to go from here. Excuse me, I don't think this is a pass this month. I think this is open for discussion. Major Greg Dahl will have that during his presentation, but I wanted to give an explanation of how that was presented in the book and why.
Okay, so we'll discuss it this
Correct.
month, but not vote on it.
Correct.
Very good.
That's all I have.
Okay, well, thank you. I guess we're ready for public comments, and we've had one person sign up. 2? Just one? Okay. Thanks.
Howdy, everybody. My name's Morgan Rainey. I'm a real estate agent. I got 2 kids. I live in the Northland. I sell houses all over the metro area. I was up late last night reading the annual reports. I went back to 2015 all the way up to 2019, and I read those in detail. And I just want to thank everybody here. Chief Smith, I want to tell you that you're awesome. We respect you. And I don't know how I could do this, but I'd love to be able to just plumb the opinions of people, help them express how much they appreciate this department. After reading those reports in detail and seeing the changes, I think it's obvious that this city's police department has a level of accountability that is unique, and I'm impressed. I'm impressed with the innovations. The fact that we have 2 social workers, that's amazing. I did a lot of research. I'm no expert, but people who argue about this stuff for a living, it seems it's not a popular speaking point, but it seems that the people who need the police the most urgently, are the people in these at-risk neighborhoods. So, learning that there's a planned budget cut for the police in a moment where we're probably going to need them the most. Violent crime is on a rise, has a lot to do with COVID, has a lot to do with civil unrest and political stuff. This summer, when the weather gets warm, it looks like, predictively, it's going to be bad. Here's something I hear a lot. I'll be quick. And this is in any kind of neighborhood, okay? Big old stucco palaces, right? And little houses in areas that they're not the best neighborhoods. I've been in all of them, okay? And I've seen property values going up everywhere. People say, oh, look, there's a cop car right there. Oh, thank God, that's awesome. Everybody of every color, okay? I speak Spanish. I serve a lot of Latin American people. But everybody, black people, white people, everybody, not only do they want to see a lot of police cars coming by here and there, they want to see that strong presence, they want to live next to police officers. That's normal. I just wonder if there was a really strong, really honest, almost professionally managed social media campaign to get the clear opinions of people who, in the most suffering neighborhoods, they want the police there. These experiments have been done. I think a lot of keyboard warriors don't know how needed the police are. I want you to know I'm just a dude from the suburbs who works all over the city. But I think people like me need to know how needed the police are uniquely now. I don't know what amount of budget cuts reduces the presence and frequency of patrols in neighborhoods that need police the most. I don't know that margin of where response times get longer and longer. How do you measure the way that affects people's lives, not to mention their livelihoods? So that concerns me. And if there's anything I can do to help get that opinion of support and need, urgent need for the police presence to continue, also just for the name of the Kansas City Police, I want people to be thrilled to become police officers like my sister. I'm so proud of my sister. And I met one of the social workers who worked really hard. She's kind of visionary. To help the people who are struggling the worst, struggling really bad, to help them get the help they need. There are some really visionary people in this police department. And I'm proud of them. So, hey, I love Kansas City Police. And Chief Smith, the city needs to know why they can be so proud of you. So, just want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next agenda item is approval of minutes.
I move approval.
Second?
Moved by Commissioner Dean, second by Mayor Lucas. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Deputy Chief True.
Good morning, Commissioners and Mayor. My items are located under tab B as in boy. My first item is a budget transfer request. The general fund transfers move $335,000 from various salary accounts to where they are needed now and reallocates $2,500 within contractual services. The Police Drug Enforcement Fund 234 transfers funds from salaries and reallocates these to commodities. The Police Grants Fund 239 transfer will adjust grant appropriations to where they are needed now compared to where they were estimated last year. I recommend approval for these budget transfers.
Moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Garrett, second by Commissioner Dean. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you. The second item is a one-year renewal for audit services. This is a one-year contract renewal with Cochran, Head, Vick & Company. This is the second option to renew under RFP 2019-5 at a cost of $74,920. This is a 2% increase in cost from the previous year, and it does include a 20% MBE participation through Ralph C. Johnson and Company. I recommend approval.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Dean, second by Commissioner Garrett.
Second. You say so.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Item C is a contract renewal for wireless services. The department currently utilizes a cooperative agreement through the National Association of State Procurement Officials, or NASPRO, for our department wireless services. This contract period will be from March 1st, 2021 to February 28th, 2022. The anticipated expenditure is $726,490.92. The department currently has 624 cellular phones and 663 air cards. And this contract allows the department to use two T-Mobile, which is now Sprint, which they merged, Verizon and AT&T. Recommend approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Dean, second by Mayor Lucas. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The next item, item D, is the renewal of ballistic protection vest. This is a one-year contract renewal with Galls. This is the second option to renew under bid number 2020-2 at an estimated cost of $350,612.15. This is a 1% increase in cost over the previous year. I recommend approval.
Mr. Chairman, a quick question.
Yes.
On this, and I typically don't love long annual renewals over a number of years, but this seems to be both an important cost and a consistent one. Have we evaluated a longer term than just the 1-year renewal after renewal on this for perhaps better cost savings?
We usually do, and manufacturers usually like us to do this, and companies, we will do up to a maximum of 5-year renewal on these. And we did get a letter from the manufacturer, because we always want to know why the renewal happened and how much, to make sure that the vendor that we are going through is not increasing it a lot above what the manufacturer is stating. But usually 5-year renewals are usually the longest that we do.
Thank you.
And I agree with the mayor on this, particularly in these areas where there's nothing very discreet or nuanced about ballistic vests. I mean, we know we're going to need those, I mean, these are known things. These aren't things that are, well, maybe next year we won't need those anymore. Although I know we all want this magic of no more crime, I don't see it on the horizon. So I think that's an area, particularly those ones such as ballistic vests. Also, I assume this to be the case, but just as a general comment, particularly right now when we're reeling from a budget crisis, really citywide, but certainly as it relates to this department, that the communication with these vendors, takes into account the fact that we are being expected to do more with less. And we're all trying to shoulder this burden here in this department. And so I'm assuming that is part of this conversation, but these annual increases that maybe they have typically enjoyed, I believe are fairly, subject to further review and discussion in the sort of austerity of our times.
So moved.
Well, how much competition is there for vests? I mean, Galls is one vendor. Are there others?
Galls is our local vendor, and they measure us and everything. They're pretty much about the only one here in town besides another one out on the Kansas side. And we do make them, like for this renewal, we made them go back to the manufacturer and actually get a letter justifying what their price increase was. And it is 1%, which right now we know a lot of things are going up, especially the commodities. So we thought a 1% was reasonable.
They're going up while we don't have, while our money's going down, though, is the issue, as pointed out.
Fortunately, raw materials are going up.
And that's a real thing for the manufacturers. I get it. I'm not asking them to, service us and not make money doing it. It's just sort of a fair and robust conversation that I am expecting that is going on. And I'm not suggesting that it's not, Karen, by my comment, just an observation. And Galls is the 800-pound gorilla when it comes to
They are.
police supply. That's just the nature of it.
Well, so we've had it
Second.
So moved. Second.
moved and seconded, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. so.
Thank you. My next item is my communications unit update. We are currently staffed at 104. We are just down by 2. It's great. Done an excellent job working with HR and getting that to be done. And I do want to just take a few minutes just to talk about the switch to the 10-hour plan and just some comments that I received and feedback from our staff. When asked about the 10-4 plan, one of our employees said, "I love it." She said it provided more time with family, more relaxed days, and has cut down on overtime for her, which was a good thing. She said she hopes that we can keep it. Another person said, "The extra days off feel great, and I barely notice the extra 2 hours each day. Overtime isn't bad either because I'm already used to working 12-hour shifts." And here's another one. One of the call takers said that on the 8-hour plan, they would get really tired by the 5th day. Now they have an extra day or 2 to recuperate before the new work week without having to use exception time. And one of the dispatchers said, with this plan, she can spend more time with her daughter and doesn't have to worry about having a babysitter so much. So I just wanted to express to you how thankful they are that after all these many years, we were able to go to the 10-hour plan.
Well, good. Glad it's working out so well.
It is. A few kinks, but they're getting through it.
Good.
And that's all I have for my report, unless you have any questions.
Commissioner, can I weigh in on this? I would just like to say thanks to Commissioner Dean, who, after we had the audit, put a lot of research and went up and spent a lot of time in communications and really listened to what people were saying. And I think she got an earful about how important this was to them. So I just wanted to say thank you, Commissioner Dean, for listening and being a champion for this.
It was my pleasure. I promised them I would come back after it was implemented, which was this January the 23rd. I couldn't go and sit down with them again because we don't let anybody in and out of communications right now because of COVID. But to any of the members of the people who take calls and dispatch, I promise I will come as soon as they let me. So I'm so glad it's working.
And I should say, Kathy, I appreciate you doing that as well. You know, we spend a lot of time talking about our uniform officers or our law enforcement folks, and they deserve that, for sure. But, you know, the communications, as those who've been in the field know, the communications folks are an integral and essential link in our chain and our ability to do our job. And there's a lot of things we can't do for them. We have budget constraints, we have pay constraints, we have condition restraints. So I applaud all of you for working to try to figure out ways in which we can make their life better, more encouraging, and also help in our recruitment. Because without communications folks, we're all thumbs. And that is just a very, very, very critical group. So I'm pleased to hear that, because I think that may help us in the days ahead as we try to recruit more folks to take those very daunting jobs.
If I could add to that, I don't think people realize this week when I got called on one of our recent homicides, won't go into which one, and the communications supervisor was explaining what happened, and I said, well, how do we know how this unfolded? And she said, well, our call taker was on the phone when it occurred, when the person died, why they were being attacked. They were on the phone with that person. I said, well, how is our call taker after that? She was very new. They sent her home that evening. But to tell you the stress that goes when they hear people in that state, and knowing, you know, you're in a communications room maybe miles away and you can't help but other to send help is your job. But it is very stressful to hear those calls out in your ear. And so I think this is well-deserved. I think we've needed it for years, and I too am glad it's implemented.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Chief Dool.
Good morning, Commissioners and Mr. Mayor. My item's under tab C. We have the Academy class summaries there. The senior class is scheduled to graduate this Thursday. There's 7 graduating. One is a Kansas City entrant officer who was in the previous class, but due to an injury was recycled to this class. And then our junior class is consistent of all outside agencies. That started in January, and they're scheduled to graduate in July. Any questions about class summaries? Okay, just a few highlights regarding youth services before we get into the two policy items. Our PAL youth attendance has continued to be strong. We were at 661 for the month of January. We are currently working with stakeholders within South Patrol Division to expand PAL programming on a limited basis in South Patrol. The plan is to begin with Friday nights and then hopefully go from there. PAL was recently awarded a grant from the Children's Services Fund for 2021 in the amount of $131,000, and those monies will be used to help do some of the, expand that PAL programming. Okay, moving on to the first policy item, the internally recorded digital media records. As you notice, there's no red line version in your book. This is essentially a new policy. It took our old in-car video camera policy and then incorporated the body-worn cameras and also to reflect a new records management system. Commissioner Dean, I know you've reviewed these and had some items that you wanted to discuss in regards. I do have Major Paul Lusters here and also Major Mike Hicks, who were instrumental in formulating this. So I am not the expert on this. I will tell you that up front, but I do have the experts here. So if you have questions or whatever.
Well, I'm sure I'm not the only one that has questions. All the board members have this in their packet. One of the things I wondered is, why don't we call it body camera or something like that, what everybody would recognize? Why do we have this other term?
Well, because it is more than just body cameras. It's also the in-car cameras. I believe it also would reflect other cameras that we have in our facilities. So it's more than just body-worn cameras.
Okay. One of the things that I saw more, not just once, but in Annex A, D, capital D, 3, it says they must, well, they say they should activate in certain situations. My understanding was that our goal is for those body-worn cameras to be activated all the time with a few exceptions. So I want to say that it must be activated, that they should be on all the time, and then list the exceptions that are there if they're necessary. And I understand that you don't, if someone says, I can tell you if I'm not on video and you want the information, then you get the information a different way. But I would like for the officers to think of those as something that they have on just like they have on their shirt. I mean, they have them on all the time. So that's my concern all the way through.
I think it was, and Paul or Mike, please chime in, but I think it's worded this way primarily for those situations in which an officer doesn't have their camera on and spontaneously they find themselves in a situation where they should, but because of safety concerns or whatever, they don't have it on, right? We want to allow for that so that they're not in violation of the policy. I understand your concerns. Those are.
But the wording is should activate, and I want it to say must.
Okay.
And why would that be different? I mean, why would that cause, you need to look at that, discuss it. When you bring it back, tell us if that can't be changed. But it seems to me that there should be stronger language in the activation of the equipment. I'm sure the mayor and others have questions.
Because, to follow up, if I may, Mr. Chair, on the point made by Commissioner Dean, it says should activate at the outset of each contact. I assume contact in some ways is a term of art. Does it mean any interaction ever, or does it mean actual when you are engaging with someone for some reason related to police activity?
For any kind of official police business, right? It wouldn't be if you're at Quick Trip and you're just engaging in conversation with somebody, right, that's not an official police contact.
So I would just second then Commissioner Dean's request. Since contact is a narrower category than, you're walking by your neighbor's house and saying, how you doing? Instead, since contact would be police activity, it would seem a shall or must is more warranted in connection with that.
Okay?
If I can, and just go to Annex C, our digital media purge. Somewhat scary title. On Section A, we note that classified media will be evaluated for deletion based on state statute. I imagine we'll always follow state statute. Not having actually looked up the state statute itself, is there any reason we might need to be more extensive than that? Or is it our view that state statute fully governs kind of the field of retention or deletion of classified material?
We go beyond what is required by state statute.
Okay.
I believe it's 30 days,
Understood.
if I remember correctly.
Where are we on this body camera thing? I want an update on where that stands today.
Commissioner Garrett, was it just where we're at as far as deployment?
Yes, generally
Okay.
with the,
3 divisions are deployed doing the testing. We've worked out, I think, most of the kinks on that. We got, I think, 214 of the new body cameras shipped. We're waiting to just get the rest of the equipment here from the vendor, and we're still on track right now we're looking to have patrol fully outfitted mid to late March. We're still right on, let me knock on wood, we're right on track where we want to be. And part of that is we're switching to that new body camera that we knew was coming halfway through the project that came, and so that's added a little kink, but we're still on track.
okay, good, thank you, Paul.
I might just say, on CA, we might want to clarify, unless I missed it, the 30 days, just defining what's the state statute is, and I think spelling that out in some way for us will be clear, at least on subsection A. Subsections B and C, I don't have necessarily any reason to object. I might just ask for our own information, kind of how did you get to the 180-day metric? I imagine that's a storage-related issue. And then the other, just the 30-day metric.
Okay? Did you have something, Paul?
Well,
Question on 180 days?
Yeah, do you want to handle that, Paul?
So one thing I think to clarify right up front is the 30-day state statute and the 180-day, what we're proposing, that's all non-evidentiary video. So just so everybody's on the same page to start with, that's all video that hasn't been held, like when you're talking about this purge per se. If it's video related to a crime, it's already held. If it's video related to a citizen complaint, it's already being held. So where we came up with the 180-day metrics is really this. We've been trying to follow throughout this deployment kind of the DOJ best standards and best practices for body cam rollouts. And they have some non-evidentiary data, suggestions. And the first one's obviously you should follow the state law requirements, which as far as non-evidentiary video, what we're proposing far exceeds that. And then the next is just, the openness to the state's public disclosure laws, the need to preserve the footage in efforts of transparency, and then lastly, the capacity for data storage. That's where it gets really tricky, all right? So we're kind of balancing the equities here, for lack of better words, but with the non-evidentiary video, when we kind of worked with our consultant to plan this project, we knew with the funding, the private funding that was in place, with a 180-day non-evidentiary retention time, we could live within our means on the funding. It's projected that the money that was put in place through the police foundation, that we could get through the life cycle of this equipment without having to go back and try to have a crisis for, a storage crisis on our hands. If we take it out any longer than that, we could potentially, based on what our consultants told us, be in trouble with storage real quick. So that's where we came up with the 180 days. I did a lot of research, took 21 major departments, peer departments, and the median of those was 120 days. So we're a little bit above that. There were some outliers there, seen some longer, some shorter, but about 120 days was that median when I looked at those other departments. That puts us, where we need to be with our storage. And, by all means, I think a lot of what we're talking about, I think no matter what we had for a time limit, could there potentially be video we wish we had that got deleted? Yeah, I think it could be 10 years, we would still have that. So we're just trying to weigh, what we could do with the money we have to get this done, keep the project, viable for the life cycle of at least the equipment we bought, which is about 5 to 6 years.
Thank you.
I have a question, and I don't know who should address it, but again, back to Annex A, and this is D5. It says, members will not record people lawfully exercising their freedom of speech, press, association, assembly, or religion unless they have reasonable suspicion or probable cause to believe that criminal activity is occurring or when ordered by a commander. That sounds to me like you've got a bunch of people at a protest and none of the officers are using their body cameras. I want to understand why.
This is a Department of Justice recommendation that people who exercise their First Amendment right can do so. So this is a recommendation from them that they not be recorded during those times. Now, that's why we put a caveat in there that obviously things can be said both ways, both from people who are in the crowd and from officers who want to document, when they feel people in the crowd are acting within the laws. And so at what time you throw on that camera is it could be debated from now until the end of time, I'm sure. But that's why we wrote this in such a way to say, hey, at certain points, someone's going to have to say, turn on your camera. And we wanted that to be in the policy. So again, this is a recommendation from Department of Justice. Doesn't mean we have to abide by it, but it is their recommendation.
Okay, because my thought is, and a number of the protesters who made comments to me and to the mayor and others, that if we'd had body-worn cameras during those protests, we would know more about what happened. And I would like for us to know more. Obviously, there were times when they thought the police officers were not acting correctly. But it seems to me when people come to a protest, they don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy. They are out there in the public for a purpose. And I think our officers should have those body-worn cameras on to document what the officers do and what the people in the protests do. I think that's important.
I think you get a lot of agreement on that both ways. We just put in the policy what the Department of Justice recommended. But I think the officers would probably agree with you also.
Well, I'd like it to be what I just said.
Okay, we will make it so.
Now, there are other people on this board, but that's my opinion.
All is best when we listen to Commissioner Dean, so I would, I would say I agree, and I actually kind of think that the earlier part of the Section D that we looked at might be slightly in conflict in a way with what we just mentioned. So if a police contact includes policing at a protest or some First Amendment protected activity, then you would have your body camera on. And it would be somewhat bizarre or difficult, I imagine, for the officer to know when she or he should turn off said camera based on the type of activity at issue. And so I understand that you all just following DOJ guidance, but perhaps we can harmonize those sections so at any point where there's an official contact, we have it on.
You bet. Okay. That's exactly why we wanted you all to take a look at it so we could get this feedback. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
on kind of the same subject. Um, Maybe I'm misreading it, but if we interrogate a suspect, we'll typically have the body worn camera on. But if we interrogate a suspect and we happen to be in the state of Kansas, we'll have it off. I don't know if I'm reading that right or not, but that's page 12.
Page what? Where are you?
Well, I mean, the 2 page numbers, B1 would be probably, is that the, no, yeah, B1,
I know
page 12 of
It's
this.
Annex B.
when we are,
Recording custodial interrogations, is the title, Annex B.
and I can't, I know we had discussion about this, but I know, Commissioner, that when we go to Kansas and we go to a police facility to do interrogation, they usually use their own recording equipment and we get a copy of that. I don't know that we bring our own in. I don't know what would prohibit us, but generally we use whatever system they have in their facility and ask for a copy.
I mean, this doesn't necessarily specify that they would be in somebody else's facility.
I
So-
agree. We could work on the wording on that.
And I think there are, some things where we could clean up a few typos, but as we go through this again.
You bet. Yes, it's a draft.
Mr. Chairman, I might also add, every now and then, believe it or not, there's a civil defense attorney that lives in me. And, our section on, and what is this? This is, I guess, the beginning policy section. It looks to where we record. There's a subsection in. And, so K-12 education, for example, is exempted from, I believe, where we're not recording mental health facilities. A few other areas where, for the protection of our officers and department, I might actually think recording at time is worthwhile. I understand the basis of this. Nobody wants a first grade classroom recorded necessarily, but let's say whatever types of incidents may happen at anything at a high school football game brawl, which I believe we've had, or other such things, we might want to have recording and protections there. So and I might be misreading it just in a quick read, but if I'm not, then might we be able to narrow that area somewhat?
Well, I think what we're trying to get at here is like our SROs would not record daily students coming and going from school and interacting. I think if we then became engaged in a police contact, that there was a call on or there was an offense or something like that, that they would be instructed. But we have to weigh this with juveniles and no parents being involved. We're just on scene there. I don't know what the school policy is about them recording their own students within the building. So I think there would be some things to work out there, but we can explore that further. But I would imagine if, let's say, they responded to a big fight in the cafeteria, that they could have their body-worn camera on until that situation would be under control. But I don't think it would be a good practice to be recording kids just because we have officers in schools.
Yeah, I think my fear, I'm just reading the rule as it reads, and I don't want somebody in trouble if they respond to a police shooting, a shooting at a high school. And, if it says members will not record in said facility, then they might be in violation. Wiser people would recognize they're not really, but, perhaps clarifying, as I think Commissioner Dean got us on the path of contacts versus not, as you just laid out, Chief, will be helpful for us in how we can make that clear.
I think we'll strengthen that wording and articulation through the policy so people have good understanding.
I think in essence, it's all about enforcement encounters. Whether it's First Amendment, whether it's in the schools, whether it's in mental hospitals, it's enforcement encounters. So if you integrate or juxtapose the First Amendment policy with this media policy, officers, we're not going to First Amendment protests just, if there's an assembly of 3 or 4 people that are holding the signs and airing grievances, we're not there, and we shouldn't be there. We're there for an enforcement encounter, and if we're there, that is an enforcement encounter, whether it's crowd control or keeping the peace or whatever. And I agree with Commissioner Dean that in those situations, you should have it on. And I know what the ACLU would say about it. You know, they want it both ways. Well, we can't have it both ways. So I just think this is, you know, there's going to be a bit of this that is, you know, trial and error, undoubtedly. And this is new territory for us. Even though it's ground that's been tread by others, there are still some nuances and areas here that are just going to have to be massaged out. And I think that, you know, we need to, this is a general observation with regard to these policies. Let's not, you know, like all of you sitting around that table, you know, you've been young officers. You've been in charge with situations of working tough streets and tough circumstances at tough hours under tough conditions. You got a lot in your head. You got a lot in your head. You got a lot to worry about. You got a lot to synthesize. You got a lot to think about. And I don't know, but Roman numeral 2, subpoint B, little I, you know, that might not make it at that moment. So I just think we need to draft, train, and expect, you know, with a certain level of real life understanding of what happens out here with these young men and women, and some older men and women, candidly. But I just think that's a fair comment in the context of trying to massage this to the right place.
I will tell you that I brought this up with my colleagues at Major City Chiefs, and we had a 45-minute discussion about first, what's First Amendment, then who gets to have a camera on and off, and then who gets to make the decision, and we were all over the board. Every city did it differently. So to tell you, yes, this ground may have been traveled by some, but I don't think there's a set standard yet across the United States of how this is handled. I think everyone, to your point, is doing it based on their local jurisdiction. And at some time that may all change, right, from the Department of Justice or others. But as it stands right now, those are all local decisions to be made. So again, I appreciate the input. This is why we want to have a great policy when we put it out, and we want our department members to understand it well and to be able to execute it well.
Any other comments?
Okay, we will implement those changes and get it back to you.
Thank you.
And then the second item for discussion, behind your pink divider page, is the First Amendment Protected Activities Policy. This is a brand-new policy also, so there is no red line version. Mr. Mayor, I know you said previously you wanted to weigh in on this, so.
Thank you, if I may, Mr. Chair. And these are both very interesting and important policies. And I also want to thank the department. As the lawyers on this panel know, we take full law school classes on these sorts of things and still screw it up sometimes. And so I'm impressed by the work that you've done. I'm going to start on Section 3. And then might just add a few things that might help us along the way. And then we'll go to Section 4 after that. On Section 3, E1, E1D2, this is really like a law school exam. You note that be reminded individuals will rarely be arrested for the content of their speech, and thus only arrested where there are first generalized threats of harm, those are never the cause for arrest. And then we note only genuine threats of immediate violence that would result in harm to an individual or substantial harm to the property of another individual are actionable. What I might suggest, in the law we have a totality of circumstances standard that might, in my view, actually be very helpful here. That could suggest if there's intelligence, for example, that comes in that says, I shouldn't name groups, but I will. The Proud Boys are coming in to take over City Hall, right? Although that might not be something that the officers who are dealing with whatever protesters right in front of them may know or recognize. If you add a totality of circumstances standard, it allows you to say, based on your intelligence, all types of other things, this is why we escalated some level of action. And I might just add that as one proposal to consider, both here when we talk about genuine threats of immediate violence, not substituting, but adding. And then also, I think there's one other place where we could add that standard as well. That would be in Section 4, E2. and I'm sorry to keep you jumping around, section 4E2, and that relates to use of force to disperse or control crowds. And so in that E2, we say members will refrain from deploying less lethal weapons, et cetera, unless there's an immediate need to protect themselves or others from physical injury. Adding a totality of circumstances standard also suggests that you're recognizing threats in the area, intelligence that might be suggesting what folks may be bringing forward. And so those would be early suggestions for us. At a different time, and like Commissioner Dean, I want to make sure all my colleagues, I know we'll all have a chance to opine. At a different time, and perhaps I'll save it for another time, but incident commanders, I would like more discussion on, so what types of either rules, how you're doing your selection, those sorts of things in incident command. Sometimes I'm sure it is based on knowing that protest activity may be coming. Other times it may be the senior ranking officer that's at X or Y intersection at a time something occurs. And so I can say that in a separate follow-up. And then the one other point that I think I would just note is on dispersal orders in section 4, Delta 2 Bravo, D2B, we note dispersal orders will only be given after the incident commander determines no less than 6 participants in the assembly are collectively engaging activity with force or violence. I know percentages would be tough for the very reason that Commissioner Garrett just noted, but what's 6 come from? Was that a DOJ recommendation as well?
That's state statute.
Yes.
Okay, well, it's very quick and responsive. All right. Otherwise, I think that's all I would have to suggest for now.
I have just a general question. When people ask us about getting our policies changed, and obviously they don't understand all that goes through, but this part of the process will then go to Jefferson City, is that right? To become part of the Code of State Regulations?
No, our policies are in-house.
So this is not a CSR? Okay, thank you.
Yep. It's in-house, it's internal Board of Police Commissioner policy.
Period.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, if I may just say, even though there's absolutely no fanfare, it seems, for this discussion, I thank you for going through work over the last half year in connection with promulgating these policies. I think there are a lot of people that email all of us, call us, and call you, that if they were reviewing some of this would recognize that this is a fairly strong policy, and we've made good strides in making sure folks can express what they need to while making sure that there's a public safety balance. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I would like to say that our people from all over the department had input on this, from tactical to labor to really Jenny Atterbury has done a ton of research and DOJ best practices, other departments' best practices. I know Major Dull's shop has put in a lot of work on putting this together. And I agree with the mayor. I think these are good policies. I think they will serve this department and our community well.
Unfortunately, they're applied to the human condition. So if we could dispense with the human element of this on both sides, this would be an easy task, but lest it be the case.
Always the optimist.
And the balance.
Okay, we'll make these changes and get it back to you as well, so.
Thank you.
Very good.
I also have 2 items under tab J for the consent agenda. First one is the Auxiliary Service Volunteer Program.
I move approval.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Dean, second by Commissioner Garrett. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes.
Thank you. And then behind your divider page, The second one is the Code of Ethics and Rules of Conduct. We had brought that before you last month. Commissioner Tolbert had a few revisions. We have made those, submitted them back to him. He approved of the changes, and so we're requesting you guys consider this for approval.
I move.
Yeah. Go ahead. Moved or seconded? At your pleasure.
Nathan, move.
Moved by Commissioner Garrett, second by Commissioner Dean. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job. Okay,
Say the start.
Deputy Chief Francisco.
Most controversial member of this board, so I
Investigations Bureau.
should start, shouldn't I?
Good morning, Commissioners. I would refer you to tab D in your books for my information.
No, we do.
First of all, I'll go over some statistical information, as I usually do.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Is this better?
Thank you.
Sir.
You foiled my plan.
I'm on to you.
To date, there have been 16 homicides in 2021 compared with 21 in 2020. There were 17 homicides in the same time period of 2019, 14 in 2018, and 16 in 2017. This next line I know is not what you want, but I'm going to read it to you anyway with an explanation. Cases presented to the prosecutor in January of 2021 were 353. Cases filed were 95. The number of cases presented to the prosecutor decreased 21%, and the number of cases filed decreased 53%. So that being said, we are still working on a much more robust reporting system. It's just taking a little bit longer than we would have preferred, but I have every confidence by next month you'll have a report broken down by county, by case filed, with a corresponding legend of how long the cases have been at the prosecutor. We're breaking it down 30 to 60 days, 60 to 90 and above, so it'll give you a much better idea of how long some of these cases sit awaiting a result. There'll be a complete section by county on, sorry, Commissioner Dean, yellow sheet. It is a term both of us use, but it will be broken down in a number of different categories for the reason for the case return. So I think it's going to be a much more meaningful report for all of us, really. The way we track it now was never envisioned to, it was more of just an accountability. We filed these cases, we got these cases back. That met our needs for years, but clearly there's a lot more that we can glean from that information. So it took a lot of work on the back end, and it should have some nice charts and graphs and so forth. So that's what we're shooting for. We almost got there this month, but we just didn't quite get it done.
And is that, first of all, it thrills me to hear you say this, because I have long wanted to have a better understanding about these cases that are submitted, returned, unfiled, filed, just to understand more of the granular specifics of that.
Yeah.
Just for, I think, for the department to better comprehend, and it seems to me that, at least hearing you state those numbers, that divide has increased from cases submitted to cases being prosecuted. What's the reason for that? And as you know, county to county, if you listen to Jackson County, any public statement that comes out from or about Jackson County, it's always the police's fault. That's just what we hear out of that prosecutor's office. And I want to see how what's being done in Jackson County compares and contrasts with what is being done in what's Dan doing in Clay County, and what's Eric doing in Platte County. I want to see, the murders are murders, regrettably. Same ones happen here, the same ones that happen in Clay, and the same ones that happen in Platte. And are we having different experiences with those offices and our successes? So I think it's great. I say all that because that's all, I know you just said the very same thing.
You said it much better than I did.
No, I didn't, but I will tell you that I have an appetite for it.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm very interested in that level of detail. I think that's very helpful. And I also hope the report to be that we're getting cooperation from the prosecutor's office. I know Platte and Clay, that we're getting cooperation from Jackson County in our efforts to try to better understand why we're getting yellow sheeted or why we're getting declinations or what the situation is.
And I have no doubt, as we get into this, there'll be questions that remain unanswered, but we'll be a lot further along in our understanding of what's going on. There are probably some issues that, honestly, with the prosecutor's office that may leave us a little bit baffled and without information on, but we'll at least know where those issues are and continue to work on.
And I'm not suggesting that it's not ever the police's fault or we failed to do something we need to do. Of course that's the case. I just want an honest conversation. It's all I've ever wanted.
Yeah.
You know, where people are actually talking about facts and not talking about politics or the moment or whatever.
Right.
We're talking about facts of policing and law enforcement and public safety, period.
Yes, yes. And you know, we found some deficiencies in our tracking just based on the knowledge we'd like to have from it. So I'm excited about it, what it's going to bring forth, and I think it's going to be a good tool at the end of the day. And I can say this now, thank you for asking for it. I wasn't so thrilled last month, but I think it's going to be a good thing overall.
Deputy Chief, if I might, two requests I might have. One for you, and I know if it's too much work, then I understand it, but if we could compare perhaps a few peer jurisdictions to the extent they have the same relationships we do. So how does Omaha work with their county prosecutor's office? How might another? I know that can follow along in a later amount of study, but it would be interesting to see. Having had the chance to talk to a mayor of a somewhat similar city, Tampa, recently, it seems as if they may not have some of the same challenges we do. And so seeing that comparison broken out, I think, might be helpful for us.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. When we put this report together and kind of get it configured the way we'd all like to see it, and then maybe we can come up with a bit of a survey for some of the folks. And, you know, we're very familiar with Tampa and their experience down there. And, you know, in a lot of ways, you know, we're envious of, not just because of the Super Bowl, but we're envious of some of their criminal justice processes they've got going on there. So, yeah, I think that'd be worthwhile to get our reporting requirements the way we like them and see how or if we can compare to anybody else. Absolutely.
And another thing that I would be interested in, and I love inviting people to public meetings, even if they won't always come, but I would be intrigued when, after we've completed this, if the prosecutor's office or the prosecutor, all of our prosecutors, wish to come to a Board of Police Commissioners meeting, or I know we're friendly and go other places too, so we could kind of look to some of that discussion that you've spoken of. So I know that's more for us than you, but
Sure.
I might ask my colleagues to evaluate such an opportunity. Thank you.
In January of 2021, we had 34 shooting victims compared to 50 in January of 2020. February 1st to the 15th, we've had an additional 12 bullet skin shootings. Drive-bys, we've had 34 year-to-date compared to 35 in 2020. 24 in January 2021 with 35 in January of 2020. We've recovered 166 firearms compared to 210 of last year, and 166 year-to-date in 2021 compared to the same number, 210 of last year. If there are no questions on the statistics, I'll get into a little bit of this, our homicide trending that we're experiencing so far. Before I get into the slideshow, I'm sorry, I'm getting further away here. Before I get into the slideshow, I'd like to set the table last year of our 2020 experience. I'd just like to remind you that in 2019, in conjunction with public safety partnerships, we conducted a review of our homicide unit and our handling of our mainly aggravated assaults. And as a result of those, we implemented some of the suggested best practices in the way we work cases and the way we file cases and so forth, along with an increase in homicide staffing. Along with that, the assault squad review, which, you know, our main point of discussion are the bullet skin shootings that we experienced. The assault squad was doubled in size and staffed on all 3 shifts, 7 days a week. And along with that, January, we implemented our shoot review process that brings all of our partners together in this very room, and we go through our weekly homicides and shootings with our partners and develop plans of action and accountability for follow-up. Then last year, middle of the year or so, Operation Legend was envisioned by the Department of Justice, which brought in a little over 200 agents and list to Kansas City to attack our violent crime problem. So our Operation Legend experience, you can see the 10 weeks prior to the beginning of Operation Legend, and then the 10 weeks or so of Operation Legend, we experienced a 22% decrease in overall homicides. So this slide compares the last 4 months of calendar years going back to 2015, and it shows that in the last 4 months of 2020 was our lowest 4 months of homicides in that 5-year reporting time period. So when you look at it like this, it kind of brings to light the feeling we all had that things were slowing down. And then at the end of 2020, our non-average clearance rate was 73%, and that's compares to our 29 clearance rate of 55%. And I would point out that 73%, when we ended the year, we had 21 cases, homicide cases, at the prosecutor's office awaiting disposition from their end. So it even could have been higher than that 73%. So that's, that's the trend we want to see. The most, you'll see the most recent FBI 2019 shows a national homicide clearance rate of 61%. So I think from our perspective, a lot of things are going in the direction we'd like to see. Of course, it always remains to be seen, but the causation of this trend also is probably up for debate. But knock on wood, we'll certainly take the trend we're experiencing now versus the trend we were experiencing this time last year. That's all I have for you if you don't have any further questions.
I think it's appreciate you doing looking it over, and it did look about like at the end of the year we're doing a lot of job because of Operation Legend and adding the assault squad members, adding the homicide, all the things that we've done. Still a very violent place, and we know, and we keep working on it. But we're making, and I appreciate the KC accomplished.
And I'd personally like to thank Miller for again creating that. And you really thank for the year experience junior amends more gone for non-retired, but there are a lot of orders and water put in the session to get all stuff done. I paint nothing bright future going towards those.
I could add just a thing. I mark the name of what happened with our partnerships from the police function, helps hide the technology that's difference in our clearance rate. Federal partners come here every week, and this doesn't happen across other cities in America. I understand that where our need that we have partnerships with these cases. And obviously people in this organization working on crime issue. And it's all hands up thing, but we have a lot of handleships to be thankful for.
I like that the issue was sent it over to observe it. And they were in operations. We all have a national trend, respond and most very is here. So for strength that we were fortunate to learn now and now.
Good morning. You'll find Administration's Bureau and the lab staff continue working on reducing the bugs at services. Last night, I told me that was the recognition. The back end, the dog have on. Our department our blood drinks needs on. So, and we anticipate continued retirements and resignations through May. We have quite a few members that have already signed paperwork to retire through March, April, and May.
So how you really can't fill those vacancies, can you? We
cannot. So the vacancies will just continue. And that's without any other questions. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Is Carl?
Good morning. Before I get started, I'll go through our monthly slide presentation. And as usual, this just depicts a small amount of some of the events or issues that Patrol Bureau was involved in throughout the month. This first item, while investigating another property crime at a at a vacant hotel, officers recovered some military documents, and with the help of social media, other officers in the community was able to locate the owner, and these documents were from 1942, so they were important to the owner. And next item, the police helped this family relocate with their dog, and the dog was traced back to Wichita, Kansas. The dog had been taken. They had noticed a person with the dog who was not the owner, and through help from the police and just other members of the community, they were able to get their dog back. And this is a interesting story here. This 80-year-old woman was reported missing by her husband, and officers as well as her family was trying to locate her, and a neighbor who was 11 next door looked out the window and saw her laying down by a pile of snow and was able to get help, and the officers were able to locate her and get her back into the house. So this situation could have turned deadly if she was left out there for a long period of time. Next item. This is Sergeant Murphy, who used to work in planning and research, was recently promoted to sergeant and went out into patrol. And this is some of the creative and innovative community engagement that our police officers are involved in. Sergeant Murphy has taken the initiative to have her sector officers meet one family a week in the community. And the families are usually immigrants or refugees that fear the police or don't have or come from an area that are not used to having a relationship with the police. And this week, this is an example of a family from Honduras where Sergeant Murphy and her sector met with the family and gave the young man some toys and spoke to him about the police. And he's 4 years old. But I just think this is really important, how she's taken the initiative as a supervisor, and these are some of the things that we want to see out of our leaders. It's just a good job overall. And not only that, when you take a sergeant who's doing that with their officers, those officers, as they become supervisors and commanders, they're going to probably repeat the same thing. So it's a good example of leadership. Next. And this officer, Kennedy, he received recognition from the Missouri Attorney General on the right, and Kennedy's in the middle, and then we all know the chief. What's interesting about this is, as I tell you the story, he observed a man that was making suicidal threats, so he intervened to try to get the individual help. While waiting on the ambulance, the individual stabbed Officer Kennedy right above the vest. So he missed the vest and actually was stabbed. He was able to pursue the suspect and detain him. What's important about this is, if you notice what the date is, June 3rd, 2020, the majority of the police department was at various locations throughout the city dealing with protests and some civil unrest. So this is just a point that this occurred, I believe it was around 12th and Grand, in a whole nother part of the city, not involved with the protests, to show that we were still out handling calls for service while all that was going on in the plaza. And this happened to happen while the majority of the department was out on the plaza dealing with the civil unrest. I just wanted to point that out. This is one of our canines that retired. He was 8 years old, and in 8 years, some of the activity that he participated in, he recovered nearly 85 pounds of meth, 32 pounds of cocaine, 1.4 pounds of heroin, and over a gallon of PCP, and then over $436,000 in cash. I would say that was a pretty good 8-year career as a canine. So he definitely will be missed, as well as some criminals are probably glad he's retiring. The next item, this is Police Explorers program still continuing. Right now they're going through building searches, which they're going through several different aspects of policing. And they meet once a month, and we're looking, in the future, we're looking at doing more innovative things around policing to eventually prepare them so they can compete with other Explorer squads around the metro and the country. They have a yearly competition with all Explorer posts around the country. So since ours are pretty new, it's like training recruits in the academy. We have to get them trained up and get them ready to go. So hopefully in the next year or two, they'll be ready to compete locally and nationally. And this was another story. Officers were just driving by patrolling, and they noticed that this lady was struggling getting out of her driveway. So they decided to get out of their vehicle and shovel her driveway for her so she could make it out the driveway. And what I want to continue to talk about when I show this, these are just the examples that we have pictures of. So this happens throughout the city every day, where officers go above and beyond. They're not just there to police the community, they're there to serve the community. And if you listen to the radio daily, you'll hear these examples going on and on and on. It's just that we like to show the ones that someone took a picture of. So I just want you to know that a lot of this is going on. This is just a small example of what we're presenting. And then this item here, this is our traffic unit that partner with Waldo Ty and Street Medicine KC to hand out 150 hot meals to those sheltering at their location. And this is just one example. Several of our CIOs throughout the month of January has partnered with other organizations to continue to give food to those in need. And the last item is the presidential inauguration, where we sent 48 KCPD officers and two captains, and I believe it was 6 sergeants. Most had no issues. Our officers had no issues. They were just there to help assist, as you see, with the other 2,500 officers. As well as Sergeant Burke was one, as well as Captain Simon that was there in DC. So we thank them for their service in that event. Now, moving on to Patrol Bureau items. My items are under tab F.
Carl, I just want to say, I appreciate that you always take the effort in your staff to put this together to show. I think it's important, especially right now. And I know it's, to our media, to the Kansas City Star in particular, it's nails on a chalkboard every time they hear us talk good about ourselves. But the fact is, there's a lot good about ourselves. And not us, you can just have at me, they do on a regular basis, and I'm pleased to see it. But for our men and women that are out there on those streets, working day in and day in and night out, there's a lot of good out there. So it's one thing for us to talk in general sort of terms about that and supporting our officers. It's another thing to see it and see these photographs and see these write-ups. So I just want to commend you on doing that because I think it's an important part of the conversation.
And I do want to mention too on the call taker that the chief mentioned. I had the call out, and when the dispatcher called me about the homicide, that when she mentioned that the call taker actually witnessed, could hear the incident taking place, I ensured that made sure that the supervisor talked to that call taker to make sure she got the necessary aid that she needed. And I'm sure Deputy Chief Karen is concerned with that also. So it's just, it's really a tough thing to kind of deal with. And I think we all can say, well, you know, hey, that's kind of their job, but until you actually hear that on the phone and when you're in a situation where you really can't do much about it, you're relying on the officers to get there. So I was glad that the chief mentioned that, because there's so many times with those call takers where they're talking to people who are in the closet and someone's in their room trying to kill them, and they have to wait on those officers to get there. And it's such a relief to them when they hear the officers making contact with those people. It's just, you know, and all of us, all the sworn people, you know, we deal with it every day, and we're never in that situation where we can't do anything about it, and you got to rely on someone else. So it could be pretty mentally taxing. So. Moving on to the monthly summaries. As I mentioned, my items are under tab F. And part of what, this will be the end of the year summary. Part of what Deputy Chief Francisco mentioned, unfortunately, we did see a 20% increase in homicides. However, if you look at December, from November to December, there was actually a 43% decrease in homicides. So it's always good to look at December. Historically, that helps set the trend for the following year. So let's hope that that's the trend that we're setting, and we can see some of it in January.
And again, that's noticeable in the statistics here. In November, December is when we started our decline. And that's not just to homicides, it's bullet to skins, it's violent crime. And just to remind people that we were on a 9 to 11% decline, you know, up until March of last year. That's what we had been on, you know, year after year. We've been heading absolutely in the right direction. And we realize that, once again, we're always measured by homicides, but there's a whole lot more violent crime and crime generally that touches more lives. And that was all heading the right direction. So promising to see that we're heading back that way, perhaps. My question to you is, and obviously we experienced this 20% bump last year in our homicides, which is to the distress of everyone. But what was I know nationally, that carried across the board nationally. What was that number? Do we have that number? My mind is 25% or something that the urban communities in particular experienced. And yeah.
Yeah, it was in the 30s.
Okay. So I just want to make sure we drive home with the fact it's not acceptable in our community, and you're never going to see me say otherwise. But I do think it's fair, you know, to measure what's happening here on a larger picture of what's happening nationally. And again, we can all debate, you know, the causation behind all of that, but the fact is that we're not on an island here, regrettably.
Yeah, and some of the programs that Deputy Chief Francisco mentioned is definitely helping. What we have to understand is, if you start something on Monday, you're not going to see the homicides reduce on Sunday. It takes months for those programs to actually get in place and you start seeing the results. So I'm pretty optimistic that those programs that Deputy Chief Francisco mentioned are now actually coming together and making an effect. Now there was some positive news. Sex crimes were down 5%, as well as robberies were down 5%. And then burglaries, 1% was down. And although violent crime is one of the most important areas that we measure, when you look at robbery and specifically burglary, you're going to have a larger percentage of the community that are affected by that crime of burglary. So I think those are some positive things that we are seeing those trend down, and hopefully the homicides will go also in that same direction. So if there's no other questions about the monthly summary, I'll move on to response times. Our response times are still down from 2019 and pretty consistent with 2020 so far this year. Hopefully we don't start seeing the effect on the response time. That usually goes hand in hand with staffing. And from the Patrol Bureau standpoint, we're down about 42 officers in patrol from this year. And so far, the response times have been steady. We haven't seen that effect, but I do anticipate that moving forward that we will start to see that start increasing as staffing is being reduced through attrition and not being replaced. But so far, we're holding steady. Calls for service were down 2% from this time in 2020. That's obvious. The coronavirus didn't really affect us until March. So we were still open as usual in last January compared to this January. So that's what results in the 2% decrease. Moving on to the traffic summary, tickets were down year to date. Some of that has to do with we're still seeing some of the results of not as many people being out, as well as a significant decrease in parking tickets, and that's due to staffing and parking control. We were at 16, we're now at 8, and we're looking to replace those people that we've lost in parking control due to being funded by the parking fund. So those positions are funded from a separate fund. And moving on to crashes are down citywide, and this has been a 2-year trend where we've seen a decrease in vehicle crashes. However, as we talk about every month, our fatalities are still consistent. We've had 5 so far this year compared to 5 last year. Although I don't actually have the month-to-month fatality numbers, but I do believe that January was one of the lowest months last year. So hopefully we can finish next year significantly lower than we did in 2020. And we are looking at some strategies to hopefully get us there. And that is all I have, unless you have questions.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Director Bennigan. Next. We'll get you next.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'd just like to remind you that Merrill is from Georgia.
That
Leave that
explains
there.
the orange.
So you enjoyed this more than most.
And I'm hurting. But good to see everyone. You'll find the monthly reports for the Office of Community Complaints behind tab H. Not a lot of activity going on due to the pandemic and also due to the weather. So are there any questions regarding the monthly statistics for January? We are currently in the process of preparing our annual report to be delivered at the end of the first quarter. So we'll have a better snapshot of complaint activity for calendar year 2020 at the, I believe, the April board meeting. So are there any questions?
I don't think so, at least for me. I am anxious to see that, Merrill, because I've continued to have a lot of interest in you know, it's so hard to, I think our public commenter talked about, you know, trying to get an accurate measure here. And we hear so much from these, you know, sort of voices right now about, you know, all the things that are bad about police, and some, I'm not delegitimizing it, some good conversation there, but a lot just what we're hearing. We don't hear from the vast majority of people we don't hear from. So most of whom I believe, if you pull it out, you know, law enforcement enjoys tremendous support. But I'm curious sort of what the trends look like amidst all of that discussion about the police and their relationship with the community and their interaction with folks with whom they contact, what you saw over 2020 and actually how that reflects empirically in what we saw with regard to complaints.
Well, what we can say is that in keeping with, I think, a multi-year trend, the majority of the complaints that we receive generally involve improper procedure and some improper member conduct. I'm sorry. The narrative that, you know, police brutality is a problem. We're not seeing that as far as the complaints are concerned. Excessive use of force currently ranks third in terms of the amount of complaints, with the other three being harassment, bias-based policing, and discourtesy. And usually those complaints fall within the single digits or the low tens at the very best. So excessive use of force is not the predominant complaint that we're receiving within our office. But of course, we will definitely give a trend analysis, and we'll break that down over a number of years as well, so you can see some comparative data as well. Also,
and I will say, you know, in fairness, you know, I just, that empirical data is important to me, you know, as part of this conversation. Like, what does the data actually reflect with regard to our relationship with the community? Not sort of what we're hearing shouted at us, but what actually does the data reflect? And I recognize as a part of that conversation, we want to ensure, and Commissioner Dean certainly has expressed this, we want to ensure that people, you know, have the opportunity, and we provide the avenues and the venues through which they can file complaints, and that we're getting an accurate inventory in our community of these incidents. I believe in that entirely as well. I mean, I like I said earlier on, I want an accurate, fact-based picture of all of this so that we can make informed decisions based on fact, not on emotion, not on the moment, not on politics, on facts. And I think you are an important part of that conversation. I've said that from the beginning, and I continue to say it.
thank you. Also, we are very pleased to announce that on February 1st, our new website officially went live. We are very pleased with the work that's been done on it. Now we are able to receive complaints directly from the website. We are encouraging individuals to file the complaints via the website now, because it enables us to afford them the opportunity to do a real-time tracking of the status and progress of their complaint. For those individuals that choose not to file a complaint via the website, we're still able to issue them a complaint number where they'll be able to log on and still find out what the status of their complaint is. So again, affording us some additional transparency and accountability in that regard as well. From going back, we're going now to make sure that all of our reports and data points are posted to the website, so all of that information will be readily accessible as well. And so we're just really happy. And also, there's currently another project that we're still working on. It's in the developmental stages, but to Commissioner Garrett's point, it will provide the opportunity for citizens to provide some real-time commentary as to, or instantaneous commentary regarding their interactions with members of law enforcement, so that we can notify the department immediately in case there's any opportunities to conciliate or to reach out to members of the public to make sure that no misunderstandings go unaddressed by either the department, the command staff, or our office. So we're just really excited about all of the things that we're going to be able to do with this website moving forward. So I encourage everybody to go to kccommunitycomplaints.org. That is the name of the website. We're going to do a full media notification, department notification, place notifications in the Daily Informant, so individuals know that that is an option to utilize to file complaints. So again, we're just really excited about that. And we just thank the department for all of your assistance with that, particularly Colonel True with helping us get that done, and then Major Hicks and all of those who I've had to contact with specific questions about getting this done and getting it done in a more efficient manner, so that we're able to get this product out to the public as soon as possible. So, and Commissioner Dean, thank you so much for your constant encouragement. Last but definitely not least, and unfortunately it occurred on a day that was very trying for the organization as a whole, but we were able to hold our 7th annual Badges in Baseball community baseball clinic. This is a partnership between the Office of Community Complaints, the Urban Youth Academy, and the I Am King Foundation. And again, this is our 7th year of having this clinic, and it's just an opportunity for members of the department to come together with some of our most prized possession in our community, our young people. The first part is always just baseball skills and just bonding and collaborating in that effect. But then the second half, this year we did something very different. We had a very frank, open, and honest and real conversation regarding some of the events of the past year. This is Chris Evans. He's one of the co-founders, my college classmate. He is the president of the I Am King Foundation. This actually was his brainchild to come together with this. This is Officer Jerry Grubb, who's also one of the founders of the program. He provides the department baseball expertise. As you can see, he takes the posture of an expert in that regard. But and also this is Darwin Penny, who's the executive director of the Urban Youth Academy, who came on board maybe about 3-4 years ago to offer up the Urban Youth Academy as a location for us to actually have this clinic, and they've been a wonderful partner in that regard. This is just a couple of the participating officers getting their early morning instruction as we got ready, just a couple of shots of the kids. We had to, of course, due to the pandemic, we only were able to have about 40 to 50 kids participate this year. And we also had to close off the facility. Usually that upper area has a lot of parents and spectators. They also are able to participate in the discussion portion of the clinic, but this year we had to close that area off to the parents and outside spectators due to COVID concerns. So just again, some of the members participating in some of these skills and drills that we were doing. And this is just a overall shot of this larger discussion that we were having that lasted for approximately about an hour and a half, just on various topics of concern. This is just an example of a traffic stop, some of the finer points that occur during that. Officer Edwin Gordillo was giving his perspective as a member of the Hispanic community. Again, Sergeant Nicole Wright, Officer Anthony Rogers. I don't know what Anthony Rogers is doing right there. I'm checking his Facebook page, I guess. Major Dan Haley was also in attendance, came by, and this is just a final group shot that we always take, and it was a good time had by all. There were some very tense moments just in the discussion, nothing too bad, but just, like I said, we wanted this to be a very open and honest discussion about policing, community relations, the future of those relationships. We talked about some of the incidents that have occurred that have been more germane to this age group, mainly some of the things that have been going on at Independence Center. how these kids can stay safe. The interesting thing about this is that a lot of these kids have been coming to badges in baseball either for the entire 7 years or for at least 5 years, and now that they're entering driving age. And so we had some very frank conversations about how to interact with police officers, try to address some of their cares and concerns, and have just had a good time doing it. So again, I just want to thank Chief Smith for his continued support of this program, and also the board, and just the officers who came out and gave it their time. It was cold that morning, and like I said, there was a lot of stuff that was going on. And usually this is an event that we extend participation opportunities to on both sides of the state line, but due to the pandemic, we had to restrict our numbers. So we were good just to have the number of kids as participants, but also the number of members who were able to come by as well. So that's all that I have. Are there any other questions?
Well, thank you for the fine work, and looks like a good event.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Atterbury.
I have nothing at this time, Commissioners, other than the informational item under top sheet.
Okay, thank you. Do we have an audit committee?
No
update?
report. No
Pardon me?
report.
No report?
No report.
Okay. Mr. Kenner?
Nothing at this time.
Mayor Lucas?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few things I wanted to make sure I shared. Appreciated the public comment earlier from Mr. Rainey. I will note that if he wishes to share that with the city council and mayor, we will have 3 budget hearings, Saturday, February 20th, Saturday, February 27th, and Tuesday, March 2nd. The Saturday meetings start at 9 a.m. One will be on Zoom, and I imagine we'll share that as broadly as we can. Another will be in person at the Municipal Auditorium, Saturday, February the 27th, at Municipal for social distancing, along with other things. I imagine there will be others that are interested in the city's budget, and we certainly welcome that participation there. As we've noted, or as you all are aware, the city budget, proposed budget, was released last week. It envisions a 4.3% reduction to this department. That's different than the 11% we saw in most departments. However, I will note in the fire department, we saw an increase partially related to the fire sales tax that was passed in the spring. We will continue to have discussions both on budget issues. Another discussion that I know has been consistent in this department is on airport policing issues, how some of the extra costs that I believe this department has had to expend could be reduced through different collaborations going forward, and we'll look to have further conversation about that. But I wanted to make sure you were all aware of that. One other thing that I did want to note, there's a woman in the back of the room who has joined my office, Melisa Johnson. You can stand if you could. Melisa is a native of Kansas City, a graduate of Columbia University, then the University of Missouri Law School. She started her career in the prosecutor's office in Jackson County. She went into private practice, leaving us public employees for a while, but we were able to cajole her into coming back and working on issues both relating to public safety, visiting with prosecutors, all of which that we work with, among other things. And so I look forward to her having the chance to meet all of you. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Garrett.
Just a couple of things. One is to Mayor's point about the budget. I certainly do encourage the public to come out and speak on behalf of public safety, on behalf of the department specifically. I have been involved in conversations with the mayor, so I appreciate that very much. His willingness to engage on the issues of our budget and what is anticipated in terms of the reduction in our budget. I have also been in conversations with Councilwoman Shields. I want to thank her for her willingness to spend time with me and share with me as we talk through these tough issues of the day. There is no doubt that this city is suffering financially. I think that's a real thing. These budget discussions they're difficult in the best of times. In terms of having full and unencumbered brokers at the table, there's self-interest, there's department interest, there's political interest, There's all kinds of interesting ingredients in those conversations. But I appreciate both the mayor and Councilwoman Shields' willingness to tackle this with me. I am very concerned about where we are financially in this department. I realize that there are broader concerns in the city, and Mayor, you certainly have to navigate all of those. I only have to navigate this one. So it's my job as a commissioner, though, to advocate for this department, to advocate for these men and women, to advocate what I believe this department needs, to be informed in what this department needs. That is our duty. Our duty is not to be popular. Our duty is to be informed and to advocate on behalf of the citizens and behalf of this department. I intend to do that without fail. I am concerned that while I appreciate the fact that we are at a 4.5% under your budget proposal at 12 million versus the 11% that was originally cast. However, I know there are others on the council that are still looking for something greater than the $12 million number. And I would just say to all of them that I recognize when you look at a budget the size of ours, that there is a belief, an expectation that there must be money there somewhere. And I appreciate the department's willingness to allow me to engage more directly, maybe than in times past. Again, back to the duty to be informed when I advocate on your behalf. We are a bureaucracy, and with a bureaucracy is your just inherent inefficiencies. I get it. But we operate on about a 92% level now after our 2.5% cut on our personnel. I believe that to be real. Based on my time spent with the department, our 8% that we operate under includes a lot of things that are essential to our operations, non-personnel. So the ability to generate the kind of money that's being expected of us comes at a draconian cost to this department. And the cost of this department is not just borne by this department. It is borne by the men and women, the citizens of this community. That's who bears the cost. And it's not necessarily a dollars and cents cost, it's a public safety cost. There is no way to do 12 million or certainly anything greater than 12 million without continuing to slash at our personnel. And that can be in the form of layoffs and furloughs. If it's something greater than 12 million, we have to have furloughs from commander level on down. We have to start literally laying people off, civilian and uniform members off. We have no pipeline of supply. But even backing it down to 12 million, that's a number where we've got an increased attrition right now and no ability to resupply. So we are losing people. The numbers are what the numbers are. Look at the numbers. We are losing people. And I realize that it's popular and in vogue right now, and I'm sure in the universities they're studying in those test tubes about how we can do more with less, and how what these afflicted communities need is less police, not more police. I say it's bullshit. That's what I say about it. The fact is we need police officers on these streets. We need more, we don't need less. You look at these statistics right now, and it's not hard to do the math. And unfortunately, right now, on our homicides year to date, if you just take the month of January, we've got about 82% African Americans. 82% the homicides in 1 month. It's not my neighborhood, right? It's not police haven't been called to my house since I've lived there in 15 years. It's in these areas of town that carry a greater risk. Those are the ones who are getting the most affected by this. And if you were to poll them, I suspect that law enforcement and support for our police would be pretty damn high. That's what I think. I think it'd be pretty high. They don't show up and hold signs in their hands, and they don't have bullhorns, but they support the men and women of this department. And I just want the record made that we're going to pay a price for this. And I recognize the reality of the budget. I will tell you that I've got some concern on whether the burden that being imposed on us is a burden being shared by others to include fire. I question it. I understand the fire tax, and I don't want this to be police versus fire. I don't think the public wants to hear that. But I intend for this burden, there's a burden to be shared, and I don't doubt that there's a burden. But I expect it to be shared equitably and fairly. And that this moment of defund the police have no traction here. There is no place for that here. It is utter nonsense. So I will continue to advocate for this police department. I will continue to be vocal about the risks that I believe are associated with increased attrition and our failure of supply. I said to Councilwoman Shields that if the city's looking for an IT person, they can hire them at 4:30, and by 8 o'clock in the morning, they're at work. We've got a 2-year lag here, 2-year lag from recruitment to processing, to training, to field training, to putting them in a squad car. 2 years. So when we decide to fix this thing, we've got 2 years before we can put a butt in the seat, right? So it's a real issue, and I don't want to just keep banging on it, but it's a real issue. I also appreciate the public comment. I try not to be partial in these things. I think we need to hear all sides, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But doggone it, it's pretty nice to hear the good every once in a while. And it's unpopular. It's unpopular. I get inundated with people that support this police department who are afraid to say anything about it publicly. What world are we living in when we have to apologize for supporting the blue? What world are we living in? Absolutely crazy. But I appreciate very much that person who has a business, also at risk. I appreciate him coming out and lending his support. So I will say, last comment that's tethered to my concern about the loss of personnel, which we cannot resupply because our academy sets empty. The Operation Legend, which I continue to be indebted to the department and to General Barr for supporting that program. And what we saw as a consequence of that, guess what? 22% decrease. 22% decrease. You know why? Because policing, it works. It's what you have to do. And I love all these other ideas, and I'm all about them. But I've been doing this a hell of a long time, and I can tell you, I think we're going to be all dead and gone before policing isn't needed. I wish it weren't, but the fact is, it is. And I also greatly admire our social services program and the pioneering of that, Chief. I think that's an important part of broadening our thinking and our approach, in both in terms of needs and in mental health. But the fact of the matter is that we're not going to social service our way out of this. That's just not how this is going to happen. So we're going to continue to need men and women in uniform, men and women in our investigative bureaus, and men and women being police officers. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Dean? Okay, well, you know, I appreciate your point of view, Commissioner Garrett, and thank you very much for so eloquently stating that. I would like to say that, you know, I think we've had good results. It certainly appears that way with the reduction in homicides, reduction in bullets to skin. So I think the police department has done an excellent job this past year, and, you know, a lot of it is because of Operation Legend and things like that. But this is pretty good news, and I think it'd be great if it were broadcast or printed, and you're not going to see that. But I think you guys have done a really good job and appreciate the police department. Worried about the budget, but so that's it. Need a motion to
Adjourn and go into closed session is my motion.
Seconding.
Lucas, aye?
Dean, aye.
Garrett, aye.
Wagner, aye. Okay. Lucas.